remind us about the sort of story and themes in A Merchant of Venice. What can we expect?
So, The Merchant of Venice is a play that people will probably know for the pound of flesh line, the revenge story that kind of goes through. That's the main plot line really from The Merchant of Venice that people know. Shylock, and it's obviously got these themes of, anti-Semitism historically and prejudice. But one of the things that attracted us to doing this play was because the first one that we did was Much Ado About Nothing. It's a very straight kind of Shakespearean comedy, light-hearted, beginning to end. That's where it is. It was a nice one to start off with, and we thought, well, we want to do something a little bit more different, a little bit more challenging this time round. And the one thing we've all, probably found, and John will attest to this, who's playing Antonio in the show, The Merchant of Venice, is that there's no one who's actually really a good person. No character comes out well. The way Shakespeare's written it actually allows for, some people, it's historically been criticised, and it was used historically for nefarious purposes by people who wanted to, be prejudiced against certain peoples. But when you actually read it, you realise that actually what Shakespeare's doing is he's attacking prejudice in everybody throughout the play to a certain degree. And so there's that main plot line that goes through. But there's also, as there is with Shakespeare, the kind of classic romance stories alongside Bassanio and Portia, the three kind of gold, silver, lead cases, as it is in this show, choosing the right one. There's comedy in there. And so there's something for everyone. It's a really well kind of rounded play, thematically wise. So it's a special one to do, I think, especially outdoors.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It is happening outdoors. And John, I mean, as Antonio, are you nervous at all about performing this outdoors? You're going to have to project, aren't you?
Yeah, projection's normally something I'm okay with, but it's still. Antonio's quite. But the part of doing Shakespeare is always a challenge because you've not only got to understand the. Because when you do a play, obviously you've got to convey the meaning across to the audience. Normally that's quite easy because it's modern language. When you do Shakespeare, not only have you got to, the audience got to hear, got to understand what you're saying, but you've got to understand yourself what the lines are and what they mean, because there's so much in the language. Everything, because obviously you wouldn't have had set, you wouldn't have had cost. It would be very minimal what Shakespeare to put on. You got to understand that and then convey that to the audience and get them to understand the subtleties of what you're saying in language which most of them probably don't understand, or they might have heard at school but didn't really understand at the time. The thing that amazes me is it's deemed one of Shakespeare's problem plays because, as Charlie says, that there are moments, whilst it is a comedy, it is got some really dark moments
really dark
to
themes
it. The thing
to it,
surprising me is how much comedy there is. In The Merchant of Venice, you think that it's got these dark moments, pound of flesh, take no more, no less. But there's some really quite funny moments. So that in the whole, taking that scene, you've got Portia, who's Bassanio's betrothed, dressed as a man, stood 6 feet away from him, and yet he doesn't recognise her. And she's acting as a lawyer, pretending to be a man, clearly not a man, and her assistant, Nerissa, who's there. And even the opening scene, you take me, so when we first come on the merchant, say, oh, in sooth, I know not why I am so sad. He's being, I'm so miserable. Oh. And then Charlie comes on as a Salarino and says, oh, yeah, if I was rich, I'd be really sad too. You've got all these ships going everywhere. But once you get that, it's actually really funny. And there's a little bit of bawdy humour. There's all the sorts of things. There's mistaken identity. Men dressing as women. There's all sorts of the usual stuff that comes with a Shakespearean
So do you think it will sort of appeal to all then?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Those who like Much Ado About Nothing. Those that want something a little bit different, something a bit deeper.
Yeah.
Much Ado About Nothing is really froth. It's one of the lightest plays and one of the shortest plays he does. Merchant of Venice, we've had to make some small tweaks to it just to bring it down into a more acceptable length rather than stood for 5 hours.
Particularly for an outdoor show, you don't want to have people sat outside, even if it's a glorious evening, for an extended period of time. So you do, but we made adjustments to Much Ado. You make adjustments to this as well. So
it's been such good fun to do. It's been a really fun, because you wouldn't think Merchant of Venice it came off really dark, but we had such great fun in the rehearsal process. Everyone laughing and finding different bits funny, which I did it at school for GCSE, as I'm sure many listeners did as well. And you don't really get the humour when you're 6. Oh, going Shakespeare again. and you read it and you don't get it. But when you take it up and put it on its feet and you get people acting it out,
it's all about the performance, isn't it, Shakespeare?
That's when you get
it comes down to it.
That's the whole essence of Shakespeare.
And speaking of performance, Alex, as we've been saying, this is happening outdoor in the Villa Gardens from 7th to 9th of September. I mean, that in itself must produce really logistical challenges for you with regards to actually putting it on from a production point of view, because there is not a stage in the Villa Gardens. So how are you doing it?
Yeah, from a logistic and technical perspective, which is where I tend to sort of come at these things from, it's been a challenge, but it's a good challenge. It's nice to sort of exercise that grey matter of here's a problem, how are we going to solve it? Because of course within a theatre, you've got a sound system in there already, you've got lighting, you have a stage. You have an environment that's naturally dark, and it all works quite nicely that way. You have seats for the audience, for example. So putting it on outdoors provides that sort of challenge for us, but it's something that we've been able to overcome. So there will be a stage, there will be a nice flat playing surface for everybody. We've got some work with some great local companies in terms of bringing in sound and lighting. And it gives us an opportunity to produce theatre in a slightly different way. Often being in the building, you're confined to your stage must go there, and this is the sort of lighting that you can offer. Whereas being outside, we can put some different approaches on things, and it provides something different for the audience. So it has been a sort of a logistical challenge, but working with a great bunch of people locally, we have overcome those, and all being well, it'll go down smoothly.
And it's a lovely opportunity as well for the audience, as you said, to have a totally different experience. You can bring blankets along, you can kind of there's access for wheelchair users as well, isn't there? So you can come along in a wheelchair as well, so where you're encouraged to bring blankets, sort of get outside, just enjoy this whole thing, blankets and chairs and rugs and that sort of thing. Hopefully a lovely summer evening, fingers crossed. We don't have time to mention everyone necessarily, but there is a whole new cast for this as well, John, isn't there?
Oh yeah, we were saying that normally when you have particularly certain group societies, you have a company of actors that all come together and they'll perform. The thing with Parados is there is no fixed company. It's not, whilst it is a extended family, if you want to think of it that way, it's a group of people who just love doing theatre. And there are only 3 of us who were in the previous production.
Yep.
And one of the points you made before, Charlie, was, is there a depth of talent on the island that could bring Shakespeare? And people say, I don't think there is. But clearly there is. I mean, without being too big-headed about it, I think we have. I think we've. It's the people. Obviously, not speaking for myself, but for others, they're great, brilliant actors. People who've perhaps not done Shakespeare before, may have done more musical theatre, but you can bring those talents, and we get people from different sides of the performing art into one production. So I predominantly do. Want to think of it straight acting, so not singing, just pure drama. Whereas there are others who do musical theatre who haven't perhaps done things without music, and that's a challenge for them. It's a challenge for me trying to do Shakespeare and to act with people who perhaps act in a slightly different way, and it's brilliant to break down those barriers between different performing arts.
It's a great opportunity for actors, and for this one in particular for audiences as well. So Charlie, just remind us when and where this is all happening and how people can get their tickets.
So this is the 7th to the 9th of September, although the 8th of September show is actually sold out. So the evening of the 8th is sold out. The evening of the 9th, get them quickly because it's nearly sold out. It's not far
Amazing.
off. And so, so it's very well subscribed already. It's in the Villa Gardens here in Douglas, and the tickets can be obtained from the usual place on the Villa Gated website, or if you call into the ticket office, or if you call their line.
600 555.